it was just a matter of looking within the budget, not to get too crazy, because it would still have to be implemented. One of the main things is you want to present something that can be executed. And looking within the budget, I saw that the Ministry of TIAT said that they're not going to put as much attention in the Latin American market due to financial restraints, and they're going to focus more on the Canadian, European, and the U.S. market. So with that, I had an idea. I've always been pushing local brand ambassadors with our sports icons, our media icons, some of the people that are artists in general. And I know that the coalition and basically a lot of parties in general have been pushing for this to show St. Martin the talent that we have as we look into, I would say, rebranding the island from a touristic standpoint. Is important that we push some of our icons out there through influencers and and whatnot. So in a nutshell, my budget amendment was to reallocate marketing funds from the Tourism Bureau to create a local brand ambassador program. So I'm very
Recording in
excited that
progress.
it was passed unanimously, and I thank the coalition MPs. I thank the opposition MPs for sharing in that vision, and I'm very excited to begin meeting with the Tourism Bureau and to start putting the policies and whatnot forth to get going, to get rolling.
I did ask our Minister of TEAT a few questions based on that Met and Civil Aviation project and building in our Central Committee meeting. And based on her response, which is why I got the thought that if in the case that the full monies for the building of the Met and Civil Aviation building of 9.5 million guilders budgeted, if that was not going to be completely used as it was answered, then maybe the minister can reallocate some funds towards sport, tourism, and of course sport initiatives for our island as a whole. So of course, we all understand that a motion is a wish, as it's been mentioned across the board. But we, as a coalition, just also enlighten the public, came to an agreement that, hey, if we're going to present motions to the floor of Parliament, we're at least going to see the realistic approach of such, and not just a pipe dream wish as we've seen in the past. So just to dive into it, so within my motion, I presented to the minister, well, on the floor of Parliament, that if in the case the full budget amount is not needed for the Met and Civil Aviation building in terms after an assessment, of course, only then can we look into other sport tourism initiatives such as a motorsports park, which has been a talk for ages during election campaigns, but has not seen the day of light. And furthermore than that, other sport initiatives such as a cycle path from the airport to the French side, something as small that is possible on our island of St. Martin that gives a safe space for our cyclists, our bikers, and also tourists, because they love to come to different islands and countries and breeze through a nice little boardwalk while exercising as well. You can see enough on the Causeway Bridge what occurs just on that little stretch itself. So to deep dive more into the motorsports park, after the assessment is done, if per se the monies can be moved, then I'm sure that our constituents in St. Martin, both French and that side, would be very much enlightened with such an idea, because we see the problem on the streets every day with the bikers, their stunts, and it's for them, maybe it's a form of art, and why not provide such an environment for our artistic constituents to provide such stunts in a safe environment, which is why I also tied into this motion into locate deep diving into sport tourism initiatives, because all around the Caribbean region as well, we're not just the only island who indulges in motorsports. We have all our Caribbean region who flies to different islands for such drag races or such events. So it was to my belief, and also aligning with our party's belief, of how are we going to increase one, tourism, increase the sport initiatives on our island of St. Martin for our constituents, and as well.
Talk sports, we talk tourism, and wellness and fitness overall is something that we want to promote. You know, there's such, I wouldn't say easy ways, but such accessible ways on St. Martin that persons who we constantly encourage to, you know, to keep fit, pay attention, you know, to your own body and those kind of, that's encouragement that we all share with others. And thus the idea of looking at, you know, some way that we can have an infrastructural development on St. Martin that would cater to this kind of cycling, pedestrians, you know,
running.
Yes, all of those things. And so a part in your motion actually asks the minister, it would be the minister of Romi, you know, to come up with such a proposal. And I want to pitch out something here in this press conference to ask, you know, the stakeholders to think along with us, where I happen to have mentioned in defending the motion to the Minister of Romi, maybe something around a course around the Great Salt Pond. Of course, so many technical issues come in, but let us think about it. We can't do the whole island for sure, but if we can designate a road or whatever we have, you know, so again, we ask persons to think along with us in terms of really making the two aspects of, in fact, three, because we also look at tourism of the motion along with Dimar's motion, you know, to really get a little push in this area.
My understanding of the budgetary process is that as a financial management tool, it seems to be on a very high level, meaning it doesn't really get into some of the nitty-gritties. So I have a question for you about, can you provide clarity on cash flow or, for example, producing a balance sheet? For example, there are some things that are not clear, that there seems to be outstandings that government owes to people from 2024, but yet the Minister of TIAT referred to using $500,000 or of unused funds. So it seems to indicate that there's a cash flow issue or lack of clarity from a balance sheet perspective. So if you could explain that to the people. And just a quick question, you had formed an Airbnb committee. Can you explain what the results of that have been, what the findings have been? Has that garnered any revenue for the country?
Okay, to answer your two questions, Emil, thank you so much for your questions. I think one of the things that I have noticed once I became minister was the fact that things don't run seamless throughout this organization. Speed, the Minister of Justice mentioned that just now, and that's the next thing. So while you have, for example, persons who do business on behalf of government, and like you mentioned, that may be owed X amount for over X amount of years and haven't yet been paid, the issue is, first of all, we need to determine if the right process was formed. And clearly, what I've noticed is that that hasn't always been the case. Was the right person who requested for a service, should that person have asked? Who signed off on these things? And were the invoices brought in? So I now had to come in and say, well, okay, let's now streamline. We have decided to form where we have an email where all invoices are now streamlined. So now it's a little easier for payments to be had. And then on top of that, a next thing that I did so that everyone knows is that there was this thing of where individuals who do work on behalf of government wouldn't get their money because they owe taxes. That has stopped. You can't utilize one thing for the next. So you do work on behalf of government, you get your payment, you deal with your taxes thereafter. And I think that's a good thing, because don't forget, some of these individuals or companies, they have to pay workers, they have to pay their employees. So you can't hold back one thing and expecting that a service was already completed. In regard to the Airbnb, we are forming a task force. And that task force will include, I said it in Parliament, persons such as SHTA, because I really believe that the SHTA would be instrumental in helping us solve this problem, amongst others. But first, the task would be to getting the Airbnb under control.
So just for clarification, so for example, the Heineken Regatta has not been paid for 2024. They've been doing this year after year. I would assume that that process has been ironed out, but yet they haven't been paid. And could you address how government has the 500,000 unused funds when it seems that government is so tight on resources? So that seems to, provide a sort of contradiction that's not clear. If you could explain those 2 points.
Well, I am not aware of the Heineken Regatta situation, to be very honest with you, Emil. However, in terms of the monies that were paid towards Soul Beach, and I know that's the 500,000 you're referring to, that was based on unused funds for 2024. To be honest, this is all a part of the Ministry of TIAT's vision, and I would ask that more clarity from that minister can be brought forward as she outlines even more her plans where Soul Beach is concerned.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah, your social health insurances.
It's time for a new brand that is as bold, vibrant, and colorful as the island of St. Martin, with colors drawn from our diversity, cultural heritage, and nature. Our breathtaking beaches, waters, and sun, the majestic brown pelican, our national symbol, the radiant yellow sage, our national flower, the historic border monument signifying the Dutch and French sides, our exciting cruise, yachting, and boating ports, renowned Maho Beach and St. Martin Airport, the hub to the Caribbean. All these parts come together to create the shape of the island of St. Martin. More than a logo. It's a new brand that engages, excites, and will inspire travelers to book. It's time to tell the St. Martin story, to reintroduce travelers to St. Martin, to honor our past, to embrace our present, and shape our future. Our culture and diversity, Dutch and French sides, unrivaled cuisine, twice the nightlife, entertainment, and shopping, cruises, boating, and yachting, twice the adventure, exploration, and relaxation, splendid and scenic accommodations, Pinel, Tentamar, and island hopping in the Caribbean. Whatever your taste, St. Martin has more. Experience twice the Caribbean. St. Martin.
$700,000, and then we're waiving fees like crazy, lottery fees. As the Minister of Finance, are we financially capable of waiving this kind of fees? What's your opinion? Even if you're telling me that it's during the hurricanes, hurricane was 2017. We are how many years away? 8 years. And only now minister is waiving these fees. And was it done just for a particular lottery company, or is it for across the board for all those that couldn't operate during the pandemic? I mean, I know Parliament asked this, but since even though Parliament asked, we didn't get the clarity that I'm looking for. So if you can provide that as a Minister of Finance, I'd be very much happy to hear.
I believe I mentioned this in the past where the Prime Minister did mention that we are bankrupt. I would not have chosen those words had I been the Prime Minister, but I am not. So I would speak from basically what I know and what I understand. I do not believe, so we are not in a great financial position. Like I did mention, 586 is our projected revenue, 577 is our expenses, leaving 8 million in surplus. Okay, that's where we stand. And I could answer that question now because I presented it to Parliament. So that is now answered. However, do I agree? You're asking me if I agree with the fees that were waived. If it's across the board, according to me, it's all but one. If I am not mistaken, please don't quote me on it because I could be wrong. But if my hearing is good, I believe it was all but one. And, truthfully, we need to now streamline because it's about bringing money into the country. I cannot sit here or stand here before you, hear from the Minister of Justice, for example, who has come already knocking and saying, Minister, we need money, which I totally understand, and such initiatives were made possible. But truthfully, it's about bringing in money to the country via all ministries at this time. And I think when it comes to matters, since we have a cap at what we can sign off to as ministers, anything above that too, when it comes to waiving a fee, should be brought in the Council of Ministers meeting so that all of us can have a collective agreement as to what we are approving in signing off.
As a follow-up, are you telling me that the waiving of the fees were not discussed in the Council of Ministers? I'd like a direct yes or no.
I am saying that the waiving of the fees has not yet been brought to the Council of Ministers.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Bibi. Emerald, you have the floor.
Well, and that sort of touches then, could you clarify for the people, any decisions which cost above a certain amount or have a financial implication, I believe it's over 50,000
Correct.
Dollars or guilders?
Guilders.
Guilders, needs to have Council of Ministers approval. So I'm going to go back to your comment then about the 500,000 unused, where you said you're going to have a conversation with the Minister of TIAT, because the decision for Soul Beach is way over that 50,000 guilders and therefore also should have come to the Council of Ministers for discussion. So wouldn't the time for that discussion have been then?
I agree with you, Emil, in terms of the timing, but don't forget, the Minister of TIAT saw it best fitting to wanting to bring such an initiative back to the floor or the country. And I agree with wanting to bring back Soul Beach just because, A, it started here 29 years ago. This is going to be their 30th year, bringing it back home. We saw the benefits of it in Aruba. I think a clearer study needs to be done as to why it's no longer in Aruba, though. I believe that should happen because we need to understand if something is working for you, why not continue with it, so that we know going forward what is best for St. Martin, where Soul Beach is concerned. But I think besides the Soul Beach factor, besides the Heineken Regatta factor, there is a next factor, and that's the Carnival factor. And I say that with all due respect because there seems to be this sentiment that the government isn't doing anything on behalf of our own product, our own cultural product, and that being Carnival. And to my understanding, there is going to be an MOU signed between SCDF and the Minister of TIAT concerning funds that they will be receiving. And according to my understanding, again, that these are funds that have never been received by SCDF. So I look forward to seeing more of this MOU because I think it's going to also raise awareness as to everyone's responsibilities, what is their expectations versus ours. and making sure that everyone really gets a fair share of this pie, fair share.
So just for clarity, Council of Ministers did approve the Soul Beach project?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Minister, in understanding what you're saying on one level with the MOU, which I agree, Carnival is the people's, their fete. But are you aware that SOG took the Carnival Foundation to court, and there's supposed to be a verdict very soon on placing a lien on their account for non-paid bills? Is government looking at that?
Bibi, to answer directly, I am not aware of the pending court case, but I guess I am almost certain that maybe the Minister of TIAT is aware of this, and this is a topic that I would broach with her so that I could get more clarity on the matter at hand.
Your social and health insurance is your social and health insurance.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurance.
We live on an island. As a minister of Romy at the time, I always say one of the most difficult things is deciding between the development and environment, because it's coupled together and it's a hard choice to make in certain instances. We have restaurants on our beaches. We get a lot of complaints from certain individuals, what is allowed, what isn't allowed. But yet we travel to the Bahamas to experience certain beach-like activities. We see nice pictures of the Maldives and how they are developed and what they do. But we have to travel hours and miles to experience this. I would like to know, through even Grand Cars, you basically have restaurants in the water. And over here, there's always this discussion. I believe in development, but I also believe in doing it responsible. So I would like to know through you, Mr. Chairman, what is the government's view? So both from an economic perspective and then the environmental perspective, what are your thoughts on development on a beach? Because I've been faced with a lot of controversial statements and so over the last couple of years as to my stance. But I do believe that we need to remember we live on an island, and the way of our income is tourism, and what attracts tourism is the way and the activities that we have to bring them to our shores. So I believe in development. I reference the Maldives and those kind of things, but I also would like to know that and emphasize that it has to be done responsible. We can't have the beaches looking like, for instance, a carnival village where there's a booth everywhere. I understand that can't be done. Everything has to be done in moderation. but I would like to also just keep emphasis on the fact that our products, our beaches, our different experiences, the nightlife, and that is how we bring and generate revenue to the coffers. So I could be clear from an economic perspective and an environmental perspective, what are the thoughts of the two ministers in terms of development on the beach, with examples given? Thanks.
That there needs to be a synergy between our tourism product and environment. I think one of the key examples, the Maldives, for example, if you look at the use of the lagoon, of the waterways in the Maldives, it's low impact over the water, in the water. One of the challenges I think that we face is that we don't necessarily, at least in my time, or have come across any designs that have placed that low impact into over the water. What has been placed forward several decades is usually a very tall, very intrusive coastline hotel that doesn't really make use of things like over-the-sea bungalows. It's really just a big concrete structure on the coastline, which in of itself, it goes against a lot of what we actually allow versus in our building ordinance, in our own policies. So I agree, something like that can be looked into once it actually enhances and doesn't destroy the environment. So point well taken. And just to clarify as well, the example given of Grand Cause wasn't built in the sea or near the sea. Erosion caused a lot of these restaurants to be in the water. If I recall growing up, going to Grand Cause, there were sea grape trees that kept the shoreline back, and there was quite a distance between the beach. If you go now to areas, most of Grand Cause is in the water, not because by design, but by erosion. So mitigation efforts is what you really have to look into when you're going to maintain and build on your coastline. And something that we also are looking at, and let me preface that will be mentioned, there will be it will be explained a bit further based on your agenda, point 4, on, for example, the part of roaming which involves sustainable management and environmental conservation to the point of the beach policy. But just to be very simple, because I've been very long-winded here, I do agree with the MPs. Look at how we can do a bit more use of the water once it's environmentally limiting in terms of its impact.